I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we are talking about the day America cried. You know what day that was. It was 9/11, 2001, 21 years ago this month. But the day America cried is also a book of poetry written by our guest right now on Spotlight, Patricia Schoeler. Pat, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. Thank you for having me, and it's so nice to meet you.
A pleasure meeting you as well. 9/11 is on everyone's mind right now because it is something that took place 2 decades ago, yet it's still very, very fresh in people's memories and recollections. Where were you 21 years ago? Let's start with that.
Okay, I was sitting here having a cup of coffee, just watching TV, when the news broke on to say, that a plane had flown into the Twin Towers in New York. And it was like, what? Yeah. And then they showed a picture. And I think, like everybody else, we thought perhaps it was a small plane, that perhaps there was a medical emergency, something, until we saw the size of the hole and the flames coming out of the building. And then when the second plane hit, it was just blows your mind.
It was a mind-boggling day. And as you point out in your book, it was in amazing juxtaposition to the beautiful day that it was outside. I mean, it was a perfect late summer day. You could feel fall was in the air. You drank a cup of coffee in the morning and you were glad to be alive. And then suddenly these horrific events were unfolding all around us.
Yes. And being in New Jersey, we're technically about 8.5 miles away.
Right.
And here in West Orange, there was a Eagle Rock Reservation, which is an unobstructed view from here to the New York skyline.
Right.
So later in the day, we all gravitated going over there to actually see what was happening. And it was, where the skyline was, the Twin Towers. Now it's empty. All you see is smoke.
Exactly. Yeah. It was horrific. I was working as a TV news reporter for WWOR TV, Channel 9, and I was in New Brunswick, New Jersey at the time, and I drove up the New Jersey Turnpike, and I actually had a clear view of the towers collapsing as I drove up the Turnpike. I eventually made it to Liberty State Park, right across from the Statue of Liberty, right across from Lower Manhattan, and watched the whole thing unfold and talked to witnesses as they came off the PATH train. It was a horrific day. Now, you have put this day in a book of poems. Tell us a little bit about the day America cried.
What happened as I was watching things unfold on TV and talking with different people, going over to the reservation there and mingling among other people. And we just became this one huge family. We didn't know people, but we did, if you know what I'm saying. And I think my way of coping is writing, and it came out in poetic form. And as things would unfold on TV, I would just start writing a poem about it. And I know history books state facts, and mine do too, because I dated for each day that I wrote the poem. But my book actually attaches feelings to the facts. That's the only way I know how to put it.
Absolutely.
It's just what I felt.
And I think putting it into poems is just a very lyrical and beautiful way to remember that day. And there was a lot of horror that day, but there was a lot of beauty that day. There was a lot of self-sacrifice that day. There was a lot of community that day. So out of this awful tragedy, we did see the worst of people, but we also saw the best of people. What do you say?
We did see the best of people. Going through my book again, like picking up things that happened, like this one man who was going around picking up pictures that he found on the ground and putting them in a bucket so that he could bring them somewhere so families would have closure. I mean, it's just the human heart. It's what we do to help each other,
It's amazing what people did that day, how neighbor helped neighbor, how people consoled each other. And like you said, like you walked down to the park to take a look. People just came together and stayed together. But here we are 2 decades later. Do you think we've learned anything? Do you think that America is better, stronger, wiser, or are we weaker, diminished, and bowed in stature? What are your thoughts?
Well, in some ways, we are a lot stronger because we rebuilt a lot stronger. I wish we had the same feeling of community now, though, that we did then. You know, I kind of don't see that anymore. But on Sunday, I went to the memorial because every year we have a ceremony. And I've been blessed to have my poems put in for 21 years. I write a new one every year. But what I'm saying is we all came together again, reliving that day as a sense of community. But our country has built stronger. But I truly wish we were more united the way we were then.
Yeah, we seem more divided than ever. I feel like, in my opinion, it seems like our guard against terrorism has been let down. It doesn't feel like we're as vigilant as we should be. Do you have the same feeling that we're not really taking the precautions that we need to take?
Truthfully, I'm not sure how to answer that. I'm really not sure. In some ways, I want to say yes. Some ways, I want to say no.
Exactly.
You know.
I think most Americans would say that. Tell me about the reception of your book. Have any 9/11 family members read it? Tell me about the feeling, the reception it's received.
Well, when I first put it into book form was in 2002. And my partner and I, we went to a local printer and had it printed up. And it was truthfully for my nieces and nephews and their kids, because they wouldn't know what was happening, the younger ones. Like I had a niece born on November 1st, 2001. So in effect, it was for my family and friends, and they all really, really appreciated it and liked it. It was actually on the 10th anniversary that I decided to go have it published, you know, professionally, and then put it out there. So again, it went to family and friends, and it's online. So I did have people buying it. And because I think in the beginning, it might've been too raw for people to get it. Like 10 years later, it's like, oh, okay. If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely makes sense. And I'm glad the book is out there. It's available on your website, patriciaschoeler.com. It's also available on Amazon. You can buy a physical copy or you can download it. I think it's an important book for people to read because it helps them get their own thoughts together, their own mind wrapped around this day, and helps them connect with it a little bit, because we're all traumatized by this day. I mean, America's changed, but we as individuals are changed since 9/11, Patricia, don't you think?
Yes, yes. If I may, Logan, there's one poem in there, The Sound of the Beepers, about the firemen. And if I could just explain, my nephew is a firefighter. He was at the time. He's now a battalion chief. But when we were talking, I could see the pain on his face. And he explained to me, because a lot of fire departments from different states, you know, went to help out. But the sound of the beepers is, I didn't know that they all wear a device that if a firefighter is fallen and can't move and they can't be found, this activates the beeper so that other firefighters can find them. And when he was telling me about it, it was just how horrible that had to be to hear these things going off, you know, in ground zero, and you can't get to them. And that's why that poem was written. But it is mounted in quite a few fire departments, because I would print it up, put it on a plaque, and then would present it to them. And most fire departments have 9/11 memorial rooms. So I'm very proud to say, you know, it hangs there.
And you should be proud. It's a beautiful poem. It's a touching poem. It's a wonderful tribute. And the firefighting family is a very close-knit family, whether you're fighting a fire in West Orange or Brooklyn or Staten Island. This is a connected region. You've got nephews and uncles and grandfathers, many generations of firefighters who have served the New York City region for a long, long time. So with so many firefighters killed in this event, every firefighter was touched by this horrible event.
Yeah, I could see it etched on his face. And that's what prompted the poem, you know?
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful poem. You've written other books as well. One of them is called Reflections of Life. And that's kind of like a book of poems that help guide you through the different challenges that we face every day.
Yes. I have hundreds and hundreds of poems. I really do. And they're kind of every situation. For my entire life, I've been very sensitive to other people and empathetic, that I pick up on their feelings, so that when I hear stories, I just end up writing it down. In fact, my nieces and nephews I refer to as my kids, and they call me dial-a-poem, because they'll call and say, Aunt Pat, I need a poem on such and so. Mm-hmm. And then I'll write it for them. But I decided to just put them all together and see what I can do. And I made a book for that too. So I think it covers just about every aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a good book of daily devotions, if you will. You could read a different poem every day as a time to reflect upon your life and to thank God for all he has given us. So it's a terrific book of poems. Another book you've written is called Grief Hurts. And tell me about that. That has to do with dealing with loss, correct?
Yes. We all feel loss. Every single person has lost something, whether it's a partner, a spouse, a child, a grandparent. We all go through grief. There's no way we can get away from that. And my book started when my partner passed away. And that's when I started writing to get through my grief. And when I started sharing that with people in my grief group, they're going, Pat, you have to do something with that, because they said, you're putting our feelings into words. We can't say it. Mm. And that's what motivated me to put that out there. I hesitated, to be honest with you, but I did it. And it's getting a lot of reviews from people that are suffering.
That's wonderful. And helping people put their grief into words is very, very important. I mean, I've lost both my parents, and it was horrific grief that I went through for a long time. I would say I'm a changed person ever since they died. You look at life a little bit differently after you lose the life of a loved one.
Yes.
And I know it was a difficult book for you to not only write, but to put out there, because you're putting a piece of yourself out there, because it's so personal. And I guess that's why you had to think long and hard before you decided to publish Grief Hurts.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, you've got a wonderful heart, a wonderful mind, Pat. The books are fantastic. They help us think about and reflect upon and grow from some bad times, some good times, and some great times. The names of the books are The Day America Cried, it's about 9/11, Reflections of Life, which is a book where you will find poems that will help you through all different types of challenges that you face on an everyday basis. And of course, the last book, which we just talked about, is called Grief Hurts. And if you're hurting inside, if you've lost a child, a partner, a husband, a wife, a mother, or a father, this book is essential, because you'll realize other people feel your pain and have shed your tears as well. Patricia Schoeler, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Logan, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And to the viewers at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time, this time. Until next time on Spotlight.